Do not dismiss what you have been feeling lately, because your inner world has not been reacting without purpose. For weeks, an invisible current has been gathering beneath the surface of your everyday life, quietly shaping your thoughts, your emotions, and even the sensations moving through your body. Perhaps you have noticed an unexplainable weight resting across your chest, a lingering discomfort in your stomach, or a persistent feeling that something important is waiting just beyond your awareness. Maybe your mind has drifted through the same unanswered questions again and again, only to discover that every conclusion slips away before you can hold on to it. Conversations have remained unfinished, emotions have remained unnamed, and the words you wanted to speak seemed to disappear before they ever reached your lips. If that sounds familiar, then what you are experiencing is not meaningless. It has been preparing you for this exact moment. On Friday, July 10th, the moon moves into Gemini, and this shift opens a doorway that has remained closed until now. Something hidden inside your awareness finally finds its voice, a realization that has been quietly forming for weeks, a truth that has lingered at the edge of your consciousness without revealing itself, finally becomes impossible to ignore. For 3 zodiac signs especially, this is far more than gaining a fresh perspective. It marks the beginning of an entirely different chapter, one capable of changing the direction of their lives. Yet the greatest surprise is not the message itself. The message is only the final piece. What truly determines whether you can receive it is everything your body has been trying to communicate during the past 10 days. If you have felt an unusual heaviness that no doctor, no circumstance, and no logical explanation seems able to explain, keep following this journey, because there is a very specific reason this sensation has appeared now, and its meaning will become clear later. Before that answer can make sense, however, you must first recognize that today's breakthrough did not begin today. It did not begin yesterday either. The stillness surrounding you has never been empty. Beneath that apparent silence, countless emotional and spiritual processes have been unfolding without your conscious awareness. What looked like nothing happening was actually tremendous movement occurring beneath the surface. Silence has not been an absence. Silence has been potential, gathering its strength. Imagine a force building quietly until the exact instant it is ready to transform everything. That is where this story truly begins. We have to travel back to June 29th, when Mercury entered its retrograde through Cancer. Many people hear the words Mercury retrograde and immediately think about delayed messages, technological glitches, misplaced documents, or interrupted travel plans. Those experiences certainly exist, but this particular retrograde reaches much deeper than ordinary inconveniences. Mercury, moving backward through Cancer, does not merely interfere with communication in the outside world. It redirects communication inward, toward the emotional landscape you have spent years creating inside yourself. Cancer governs memory, emotional protection, family roots, the feeling of home, the relationship with the mother, and the oldest emotional patterns that often remain hidden beneath daily life. It safeguards the stories you rarely tell anyone, the wounds you convinced yourself had healed, and the parts of your identity you carefully locked away because revisiting them felt too painful. As Mercury retraces its path through this deeply emotional sign, your attention is pulled inward whether you intend it or not. Suddenly, it becomes difficult to explain yourself. Messages are typed only to be erased. Important conversations are imagined repeatedly, but never spoken aloud. You rehearse every possible outcome inside your mind until the emotional weight of each sentence becomes too overwhelming to release. Perhaps you have wondered why every word feels unusually significant, as though speaking too quickly might permanently change something. If you have felt trapped inside your own thoughts, unable to express what seems so obvious in your heart, understand that this is not evidence that something is wrong with you. It is evidence that the retrograde is accomplishing exactly what it is meant to accomplish. Before asking you to communicate with the world, It insists that you understand yourself first. It slows your voice so your inner truth has time to catch up. Yet there is another layer that receives far less attention. Within Vedic astrology, this entire Mercury retrograde unfolds inside a single nakshatra, known as Punarvasu. The meaning of Punarvasu is the return of the light. It carries the symbolism of restoration, renewal, and recovering something believed to have disappeared forever. That symbolism changes everything about how this period should be understood. The silence you have struggled through has never been punishment. The delays have never been meaningless obstacles. Every moment of uncertainty has served a purpose. Something essential has been finding its way back to you. Perhaps it is a forgotten part of your identity. Perhaps it is an answer you stopped believing would ever arrive. Perhaps it is a truth that could only be recognized after enough emotional layers had fallen away. Whatever form it takes, its return becomes possible today. The quiet season has functioned like a cocoon surrounding a transformation that could not be rushed. The emergence begins now. But another powerful moment must also be understood. July 4th created a turning point whose full consequences may still be unfolding. If Mercury retrograde built the pressure beneath the surface, then July 4th became the instant that pressure could no longer remain contained. On that day, Mars met Uranus in the early degrees of Gemini. Mars represents action, confrontation, separation, and decisive movement. Uranus represents awakening, sudden disruption, liberation, and irreversible change. Whenever these two planetary forces come together, they rarely whisper. They create dramatic breakthroughs that permanently alter existing patterns. Because this meeting occurred in Gemini, the sign connected with communication, information, learning, perception, and duality, its effects naturally emerged through conversations, relationships, exchanged ideas, and the way reality itself was interpreted. Think carefully about that day. You may remember a conflict that appeared without warning. You may remember receiving information that instantly changed your emotional landscape. Perhaps someone spoke words that shattered an assumption you had trusted for a long time. Perhaps someone remained silent when you desperately needed an answer, and that silence itself altered everything. It is equally possible that nothing remarkable occurred in the outer world, while inside you, an intense current of nervous energy suddenly appeared without explanation. Maybe anxiety pulsed through your body like electricity, leaving you unable to relax even though nothing around you seemed different. None of those experiences would have been accidental. They reflected the collision between Mars and Uranus, activating the realm of communication across the sky. Yet one final piece explains why the meaning of that moment has remained so difficult to understand. Mercury, the very planet responsible for organizing information, interpreting experiences, and creating understanding, was still retrograde, combust, and immersed within the emotional depths of Cancer. The event itself arrived before your ability to fully comprehend it. The breakthrough happened first, while the interpretation remained delayed. It was as though the universe delivered the entire message in an instant. Yet your heart and mind needed additional time before they could translate what had actually taken place. The impact was immediate, but the understanding has been arriving slowly, one layer at a time. For nearly 6 days, you may have felt as though you have been standing among the remains of something invisible, searching for answers that refused to reveal themselves. Deep inside, you know a turning point already happened, yet every attempt to explain it seems incomplete. That lingering uncertainty has not been your imagination. The event itself unfolded on July 4th. What has been missing until now has been your ability to fully recognize what it changed. Today becomes the moment when understanding finally catches up with experience. That is why the confusion has felt so persistent. You have been living in the aftermath of an energetic shift without yet possessing the language to describe it. This is also why the physical sensations you have been carrying deserve your attention instead of your doubt. Earlier, I mentioned the unusual heaviness many people have been feeling throughout the chest and stomach, and now the reason becomes much clearer. Cancer governs the chest, the stomach, the diaphragm, the womb, and every place within the body where unspoken emotion quietly settles when it cannot find expression. During the past 10 days, with both the Sun and Mercury retrograde traveling through Cancer, your physical body has become the container for everything your conscious mind has not yet been able to organize into words. What feels like pressure beneath your ribs is not simply ordinary anxiety. It is emotional weight accumulating because your awareness has not yet completed its process of understanding. Those persistent sensations inside your stomach that seem to arrive without explanation are your nervous system responding to something far larger than your conscious thoughts have been able to identify. That heaviness spreading across your chest, making each deep breath feel slightly more difficult than usual, reflects grief, longing, memories, and unresolved emotional experiences resting inside the very parts of the body associated with Cancer. Throughout this entire retrograde cycle, your body has been performing a task your mind could not yet accomplish. It has quietly carried every emotion that felt too large, too layered, or too complex to process all at once. Rather than forcing immediate understanding, it preserved those experiences until the proper moment arrived. That moment is today. When the moon enters Gemini at 6:40 in the evening on July 10th, the energetic emphasis rises upward. Instead of remaining concentrated within the emotional centers connected to Cancer, the movement shifts toward the lungs, the hands, the nervous system, and the areas traditionally associated with Gemini. You may notice that the tightness resting in your stomach suddenly begins to soften. You may find yourself instinctively taking a deeper breath than you have in days. An unexpected desire to speak honestly, to reach out, to move your body, or finally express what has remained trapped inside may emerge without warning. The realization does not first appear as an idea inside your mind. It announces itself through your body before your thoughts fully understand it. If you have been carrying emotional weight throughout these recent days, this is the point where your system finally begins releasing what it has been protecting. It is as though a barrier that has held back an entire emotional tide can no longer remain intact. Yet before the moon activates this dramatic shift, another important influence quietly prepares the ground. Early on July 10th, Venus at 0 degrees Virgo forms an exact trine with Chiron at 0 degrees Aries. Venus represents love, personal values, relationships, and self-worth. Chiron represents the wounded healer, the place where life's deepest pain eventually transforms into wisdom capable of helping both yourself and others. A trine creates effortless movement between planetary energies. It removes resistance and allows healing to occur with remarkable naturalness. This particular alignment functions almost like a calming presence, moving gently through the nervous system before something significant unfolds. Imagine attempting to receive life-changing information while your entire body remains trapped in survival mode. Fear would distort the message before you could understand it. Defensiveness would replace curiosity. Instead of accepting the truth, you might reject it or use it against yourself or someone else. The exact trine between Venus and Chiron helps prevent that response. It gradually softens the protective walls you have built around old pain. It creates an atmosphere where emotional honesty feels less threatening. It allows you to look directly at long-standing wounds without immediately pulling away. It gives you the emotional steadiness necessary to remain present even when uncomfortable realizations begin to surface. All of this occurs before the evening's larger transition unfolds. By the time the moon reaches Gemini, you are no longer preparing for emotional impact. You have become available to receive what is arriving. Your defenses have relaxed. Your heart is less guarded. For the first time in many weeks, truth no longer feels like something dangerous. Then, at 6:40 in the evening, the Moon crosses from Taurus into Gemini, and this becomes the moment when the atmosphere changes in a noticeable way. While the Moon remains in Taurus, it naturally seeks security, predictability, familiarity, and emotional stability. It prefers preserving what already exists rather than encouraging movement. The instant it enters Gemini, however, that pattern begins to shift. What was silent begins searching for expression. What remained locked inside starts looking for language. Emotional heaviness gradually transforms into mental clarity. The dense fog that has surrounded your inner world slowly begins to lift, allowing you to recognize what has been hidden in plain sight. Gemini is ruled by Mercury, the planet governing communication, perception, learning, and the exchange of information. It symbolizes curiosity, flexibility, multiple perspectives, and the continual movement of ideas. As the Moon enters this sign, emotions that previously felt impossible to define begin organizing themselves into clear thoughts. Feelings that seemed overwhelming become conversations you can finally have with yourself or with someone else. What has existed only as sensation now becomes understanding. What has remained buried inside your body becomes language. What once felt impossible to explain becomes something you can finally recognize, examine, and respond to with intention. And that realization prepares the way for what comes next. As the Moon advances through the opening degrees of Gemini, it reaches the precise location of 3 degrees and 52 minutes, the very place where Mars and Uranus came together on July 4th. That point in the sky is not simply revisited, it is awakened. The energy that erupted during that earlier alignment has remained suspended, waiting for the right cosmic trigger to bring its deeper meaning into awareness. Now, the Moon becomes that trigger. What once existed as confusion, emotional intensity, and scattered fragments begins transforming into understanding. Astrology recognizes this process through an ancient principle known as the translation of light. Rather than allowing the explosive force released by Mars and Uranus to remain unfinished, the Moon gathers that energetic imprint and carries it forward until it reaches Mercury. In symbolic terms, the information that burst into existence during the events of July 4th finally finds its way into conscious thought. This is why long-awaited messages may suddenly appear after weeks of silence. This is why an unexpected realization can strike with astonishing speed, feeling almost as though lightning has illuminated a landscape that was invisible only moments before. Hidden truths no longer remain hidden because the timing that kept them concealed has completed its purpose. What seemed delayed was never truly lost. It was simply waiting until you possessed the capacity to recognize it. Today, that waiting comes to an end. The message arrives, but its arrival is only the beginning of a much larger process. What unfolds on July 10th offers the missing piece that has been absent from your understanding, yet a single puzzle piece cannot immediately reveal the entire image. That fuller perspective emerges 2 days later. On July 12th, the Sun forms an exact conjunction with Mercury in Cancer. Within astrology, when Mercury comes within 17 minutes of arc from the center of the Sun, it enters the rare condition known as Kazimi, an Arabic term meaning in the heart of the Sun. During this extraordinary interval, Mercury is no longer weakened by the Sun's overwhelming brilliance. Instead, it becomes strengthened, refined, and illuminated from within. Symbolically, it is as though the Sun grants Mercury complete authority to reveal what has remained hidden. This creates one of the clearest moments for perception and understanding. The information received on July 10th no longer exists as scattered emotional impressions. It becomes organized into wisdom. Confusion gives way to certainty. The emotional turbulence that characterized the retrograde condenses into one unmistakable realization that permanently changes the way you see your life. Imagine walking through a dark room for weeks, memorizing every obstacle through trial and error, only to have every light suddenly switch on at once. Nothing inside the room has changed. What changes is your ability to finally see it. The unfolding of these events follows a precise rhythm. July 4th disrupted the existing foundation. July 10th places the missing evidence directly before you. July 12th reveals exactly how every piece connects, and once that understanding arrives, returning to your previous perspective becomes impossible. Although everyone is touched by the moon's movement into Gemini, the larger astrological pattern concentrates its strongest effects on 3 zodiac signs. For Cancer, Virgo, and Scorpio, this period represents far more than temporary insight. It marks the conclusion of uncertainty and the beginning of an entirely different phase of life. Cancer. This sequence speaks directly to you because the retrograde has unfolded within your own sign, influencing your first house of identity. Every misunderstanding, every unresolved feeling, and every unfinished emotional chapter has reached far deeper than ordinary inconvenience. Each experience has challenged the way you understand yourself. As the moon enters Gemini on July 10th, attention shifts toward your 12th house, the realm associated with hidden truths, the subconscious, endings, and closure. Something concealed reaches the surface. A secret no longer remains buried. An unfinished emotional chapter finally arrives at its conclusion. An experience your body has carried for months finally becomes something your mind can clearly identify. Then, July 12th brings an even greater turning point. The Mercury Kazimi illuminates your first house with remarkable intensity, allowing you to recognize yourself with unusual honesty. The uncertainty surrounding your personal value begins disappearing. You understand more clearly what deserves your energy, what no longer belongs in your life, and where your future is calling you. The mental fog that has surrounded your identity gradually dissolves, replaced by a confidence that may feel unfamiliar after everything you have endured. This extends beyond simple clarity. It resembles the beginning of an entirely new version of yourself. The new moon in Cancer on July 14th completes this cycle by creating fertile ground for fresh beginnings. The intentions you plant during this period possess exceptional potential because they grow from genuine self-understanding rather than fear or confusion. The effort you have invested throughout these difficult months has not been overlooked. The opportunities arriving now reflect that preparation. Whether they appear through career advancement, an important relationship milestone, a change in location, or another meaningful opening, they carry the unmistakable feeling that every challenge has been leading toward this moment. Suddenly, the entire journey makes sense because you recognize what all the preparation was truly for. Virgo, your story follows a different path, yet it carries equal significance. It may feel as though you have spent much of this year doing everything expected of you, while receiving very little in return. You have worked carefully, remained disciplined, handled responsibilities with precision, and continued moving forward despite repeated delays. Every detail has been managed with care, every obligation fulfilled, yet progress has often seemed painfully slow. At times you may even have questioned whether anyone noticed your effort at all. The silence surrounding your work has felt especially discouraging because you have continued giving more while seeing fewer immediate results. That long season of waiting approaches its conclusion this week, beginning on July 9th. Virgo, your momentum begins to change the moment Venus enters your sign. As Venus crosses into Virgo, your first house becomes infused with greater magnetism, quiet confidence, personal charm, and an enhanced ability to naturally attract the very opportunities you have been pursuing for months. This is not about forcing results anymore. It is about becoming someone whose presence itself begins drawing those results closer. Then, on July 10th, the moon moves into Gemini and activates your 10th house, the area associated with career, public reputation, achievement, and the legacy you are building over time. Because of this shift, the information arriving now is strongly connected to your professional path. An important conversation may finally happen. Someone in a position of authority may recognize your value. A project that appeared frozen may suddenly receive approval. An opportunity that once seemed completely inaccessible may unexpectedly become available. What matters most is understanding that these developments are not random rewards falling from the sky. They are the visible outcome of countless moments when you continued showing up despite receiving little acknowledgement. Every hour you invested without applause, every responsibility you carried without recognition, every decision to remain disciplined while wondering if your efforts mattered has quietly accumulated into this moment. The Mercury Kazimi on July 12th then illuminates your 11th house, the realm connected with community, meaningful connections, shared goals, and your long-term vision for the future. Suddenly you recognize with remarkable certainty which relationships genuinely support your growth and which ones have quietly reached their natural conclusion. The confusion surrounding your social circle begins disappearing. The people who truly belong on your journey become unmistakably clear, and the recognition that should have arrived long ago finally begins finding its way toward you. What once felt delayed now starts unfolding with unmistakable momentum. Scorpio. Your story carries an entirely different emotional tone because the period of simply surviving is finally approaching its conclusion. Deep down, you already sensed that July 4th marked a significant turning point. You may not have understood it immediately, yet something inside you recognized that a profound shift had already taken place. The conjunction between Mars and Uranus unfolded within your 8th house, the domain associated with shared resources, profound intimacy, psychological transformation, vulnerability, and the hidden dimensions of life that few people ever see. That alignment brought separation where separation was necessary. It revealed what had remained concealed. It exposed truths that may have been painful to confront. Even if the experience left emotional scars, it did not defeat you. Your strength has never depended upon avoiding hardship. It has always come from your ability to rise after facing it. Now, as the moon enters Gemini on July 10th, it revisits that same energetic territory, yet the atmosphere has completely changed. The intensity that once felt overwhelming has settled. The emotional dust has begun clearing, allowing the missing explanation to emerge. What previously seemed impossible to understand suddenly starts making sense. The answer arriving now reveals not only what happened, but also why it needed to happen. Because the Cancer planetary energy flows harmoniously with your own water sign nature, this realization reaches far beyond intellectual understanding. You do not simply think it. You experience it at the deepest emotional level. It settles into your intuition with undeniable certainty, transforming something fundamental within your psychological landscape. The Mercury Kazimi on July 12th then activates your 9th house, the area connected with higher wisdom, personal beliefs, expanded perspective, and life's larger meaning. It is as though a light finally illuminates every experience that once appeared disconnected. The pain begins revealing its purpose. The disappointments uncover the lessons they were always carrying. Experiences that once seemed unfair suddenly fit into a larger pattern that you could not previously recognize. As this understanding grows, your inner state shifts dramatically. The instinct to remain in constant survival mode gradually loosens its grip, making room for something you may not have allowed yourself to fully embrace for quite some time. Hope returns. That renewed perspective quickly begins expressing itself in practical ways. Financial circumstances show signs of improvement. Relationships move toward healing. Opportunities that initially appear small reveal unexpected potential once you choose to invest your attention in them. This is not merely a period of recovery. It marks the beginning of genuine expansion. Beyond these immediate developments, the remainder of July continues building upon the clarity established between July 10th and July 12th. What begins as a realization develops into a completely new direction. On July 14th, the new moon in Cancer plants the first seeds of that emerging path, giving fresh intentions fertile ground from which to grow. On July 22nd, the Sun enters Leo, shifting your attention away from prolonged internal reflection and encouraging visible action, creative expression, confidence, and courageous forward movement. Then, on July 23rd, Mercury finally stations direct, bringing the retrograde period to its conclusion. The misunderstandings, communication delays, and frustrating uncertainty that have characterized recent weeks begin lifting, allowing you to move forward with greater confidence and far fewer obstacles. Yet the month continues building toward an even more extraordinary culmination. On July 29th, the Sun joins Jupiter in Leo, creating a Jupiter Kazimi that fills the collective atmosphere with themes of abundance, joyful creativity, expansion, optimism, and a profound sense of divine favor. Only hours afterward, the full moon in Aquarius brings the entire monthly cycle to completion, illuminating future possibilities while helping release limitations that have outlived their purpose. Looking back, you may eventually recognize that everything began with the message arriving today. A realization, an insight, or a truth finally found its name, and from that single moment, an entirely new chapter gradually unfolded. What starts now continues growing, accelerating, and revealing greater significance with each passing week. Months from now, you may look back and realize this was the exact period when your life's direction quietly changed forever. This sequence is neither symbolic exaggeration nor empty coincidence. Ever since June 29th, the cosmic rhythm has been building toward this point. Mercury retrograde created the pause that forced deeper reflection. The conjunction between Mars and Uranus shattered old patterns that could no longer continue unchanged. Now the moon's entrance into Gemini allows fresh understanding to circulate freely where confusion once dominated. The message you have been anticipating may arrive through a conversation, a text message, a phone call, or perhaps through a sudden certainty rising from deep within your own intuition. However it appears, its timing is not accidental. The waiting has fulfilled its purpose. The uncertainty has completed its work. Now, clarity steps forward. For Cancer, Virgo, and Scorpio, this week represents the closing of one significant chapter and the opening of another grounded in real progress, meaningful opportunity, and lasting transformation. Even so, every zodiac sign receives something valuable from this collective shift. Every sign gains an insight capable of changing how the future is viewed. As the moon completes its final quiet moments in Taurus before entering Gemini, pause for a moment. Take one slow breath. Place your hand over your chest and acknowledge everything you have silently carried throughout these past weeks. Then allow yourself to recognize that you no longer have to continue carrying it alone. The message reaching you today is not only arriving from the universe, it is also the moment you finally recognize the truth your own heart has been quietly trying to tell you all along. Thank you for spending this time here and sharing this journey. If this message resonated with you, and you would like to continue exploring future astrological insights together, consider subscribing so you will not miss upcoming videos. Your support truly makes these conversations possible. I would also love to hear what stood out to you today, so feel free to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments. Until our next conversation, take good care of yourself, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon.